Welcome to an episode of Q&A with Che. Today's guest is the one and only Tiffany Kumar, music executive, entrepreneur, publisher, and actually a former songwriter. Subscribe to Q&A with Che on the Himalaya app or wherever you get your podcast. We're everywhere. Welcome to another episode of Q&A with Che. Today, my guest is Tiffany Kumar. If you don't know who she is, you need to know who she is. You should know who she is. But either way, you're going to learn today. Tiffany, welcome to Q&A with Che.
Che. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, Tiff is also from Boston. We are Bostonians.
We are. It's rare in our industry.
Question, when you were growing up in Boston, did you ever even conceive like this like kind of the journey we've been on, or like going this path?
Not at all. I wasn't somebody that was amazing at any one particular thing. So nothing like stood out as this is going to be your career path until I moved to New York and I attended NYU, and I had no friends and I wanted to move back to Boston. But I pushed myself and applied for a bunch of different internships through NYU's like CareerNet website. And through that, I met Kanye West.
Oh, wow. That's a crazy start. Okay. So is that when you sort of decided you wanted to, pursue a career in entertainment?
That was sort of me getting my feet wet and learning about it and learning about all the different parts of the music industry. I had no idea what publishing was, right? I didn't even understand the business of shopping beats and tracks and what Kanye was doing at that time. He had just put out the Get Well Soon mixtape, and he was working on Con the Louis Vuitton Don. He was signed to Rockefeller, but it wasn't like his debut album was like about to come out or anything. So he was really a producer at that time. And so I was learning a lot about songwriting and producing. Okay.
And so you came on a capacity like basically as his intern?
I was an intern, yes.
Okay. That's a hell of a start in the music industry. That's a great way to start. Okay, so now you're working with Kanye. You're still at NYU. Let's fast forward to after you're leaving school. What next?
So I did graduate school. Kanye put out the College Dropout album. It did amazing. I had a creative itch, and as my graduation present, I asked my parents to buy me Pro Tools, and then I got Pro Tools for Dummies and taught myself how to. I literally read Pro Tools for Dummies. Okay,
yeah, that's pretty gangster.
It took me a week to even get sound out of my mic, but I figured it out. I got beats off of MySpace.
Wow.
Kanye didn't give me any of his beats.
That's gangster though. For graduation, you asked for Pro Tools.
I asked for Pro Tools.
Wow.
Yep. I taught myself how to record, and I made some demos. And at that point, I was going to a vocal coach so that I could reference my own songs. And I'd walk by Daddy's house, Diddy studio, every day on my way to my vocal coach. And one day, the doorman of Daddy's house, like downstairs, was like, "Why do you walk by here every day?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a songwriter. I'm going to my vocal coach." And one day he stopped me and he looked at me and he like nodded to the left. And I was like, "That guy?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so I just walked up to him and I was like, "Hi, I'm a songwriter." And this was one of Puff's A&Rs. And so I ended up going up to the studio and
who was it, Harv?
It was Conrad Dimash.
Okay, all right.
And so the Soul Diggers were up there. The Winans were up there. I was like, can I come back like next week when my songs are ready?
That's kind of crazy though. And I think that's a testament to New York at that time. The fact that, your first internship is Kanye West. You walk down the street, you get brought up into Daddy's house. That's pretty crazy.
That is a testament of New York. I think it was a blessing that I moved to that city.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't even know you went the creative path. I'm learning. I feel like this, every time I have a guest on, I learn so much more.
Puff put me on the show Making the Band.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Couple of seasons. I wrote for Danity Kane and Day 26. I wrote 3 songs on the Day 26 album.
Okay.
We were in Miami shooting for a couple months. That was a really, really great experience. But it was just so crazy. It was a huge pivot from what I was doing with Kanye. I was fully a creative. I had a manager myself.
Yeah.
So it was a very different life.
Gotcha. So what led you back into more of the, like, sort of the corporate side or the executive side?
My time as a songwriter, if I really look back at it, was only maybe a couple years, right? So people think I started as a writer. I'm like, I actually didn't start as a writer. I just spent so much time in the studio with Kanye and John Legend that I became inspired and I had that moment. But what I really loved was meeting new writers and producers and blowing them up. And I did that for Puff. Like, I introduced him to a lot of writers and producers that I was collaborating with. And I don't know, I found that more fulfilling for me. It was my natural fit, and I wanted to be a music publisher.
Really? Okay. At this point in your journey thus far, had you encountered any like real female role models?
Nova Perry was one early on for me. She is an incredible attorney. She's also Justin Sky's mom, Justine Sky. And so now Justine's doing really well, and she's been amazing at guiding her career. Jessica Rivera early on for me, for sure. I was like, can I learn from you? And I mean, she taught me so many gems and advice, and Ethiopia as well. Ethiopia and Jessica I met. Jessica wanted to sign John Legend when she was at Def Jam. So I had met her early when I was working with Kanye. And John was signed to Kanye. But then and Ethiopia signed me to Universal Music Publishing.
Nice. So, so those were, and then you got to see some, some young, powerful female, executives, because Ethiopia obviously to me is like just such a gangster in terms of the way she's done her career from management to publishing, to now heading Motown.
I couldn't agree more. I think seeing the examples are so necessary, because just being inspired or being like, I'm going to be a dope female executive without really having an example in close proximity to you is difficult. Okay.
Now, you wearing all these different hats that you've been in your career. What was your favorite hat? Post, we'll get into your startup, which I want to talk about. But before we get into that, of all the different hats you've worn, what was your favorite?
When I worked for Kanye, I was like completely about that life. When I was a songwriter, I was eat, breathing, and sleeping songwriting. I was in the studio till 5 a.m. and like it was all I wanted to do. So I think in every piece of my journey, at that moment, I was like, I wouldn't want to do anything else.
All right. Now, how did you meet RedOne?
RedOne I met because I was a publisher at Primary Wave. I signed a producer named Jeremy Scaller. He was managed by Alan Molina, who also managed RedOne.
Okay.
And so at that time, Red was restructuring his publishing company.
For those who don't know, RedOne is one of the main producers behind launching Gaga.
RedOne. Red at that very close to those years was the biggest producer on the planet. I mean, it was everything from On the Floor for J-Lo to Starships for Nicki Minaj, One Direction, Katy Perry. I mean, it was just, he was huge. He had a lot of songwriters and producers signed to him. I mean, like 60.
60?
I think there were like 60 at one point.
Wow.
It was a big.
That's insane.
Yeah. Big roster.
So you come over, you start working with him, and you're running his company. What was that experience like, going from kind of a company to working kind of with more of an individual and a personality?
Wow, I love that question because it's night and day. It's everything. RedOne is a very creative person. He runs his strategy through how he feels creatively, right? Yeah. For me, that every job that I start is difficult at the beginning because I'm all about strategy. So I have to assess, and people are like, well, Tiffany Kumar is here, Tiff Star is here, so she's gonna like come in and like switch it all up. And then I'm like, I observe more than anything at the beginning, and I was stuck a little bit at the RedOne stuff because I was like, all right, there's so many writers on this roster. RedOne wants to produce, except he's in Morocco in Madrid, so he wants to, but he's away. There were all these different pieces, and I was like, how do we define success here for Red and for the company and for myself? And so that took a minute, but we got it right.
Yeah, I say that, and I ask that question because I similar path in that regard, right? I worked with Dre, I worked with Kanye, I worked with these before that I worked at Warner Brothers. So it's like being at Warner Brothers, it's like, okay, you're dealing with the corporate politics. Then you get with Dre, and you're dealing with Dre politics, you know what I mean? And it's that individual, right? Exactly. Like, how's he feel it today? What's he on today? What's he, okay,
Exactly.
we're in Hawaii for 3 weeks, because that's what that's what he wants to do. So that's why I asked that question, because it was a very different journey for me each time I worked with an individual.
Yeah, again, I completely agree. And I think it's night and day from my time at Primary Wave right before that. And it was similar with Kanye, and not something I love doing.
Okay. So I know, obviously, I know your background in the history with the publishing. For people who don't know that you were a publisher, you were, publisher for many years. Did you enjoy that aspect of your career? Like, I mean, just the actual, I know you aspired to be a publisher, but once you became a publisher, did you enjoy that?
So me becoming a publisher was me still wanting to feel creative. So it wasn't like I'm dropping all creative, but I knew that if I walked into rooms and people didn't know if I was the publisher or songwriter, that'd be a problem. So I had to like just completely cut off songwriting. Like I had like a dope studio in my house, everything, but I cold called Primary Wave and then figured out who in my network knew Larry Mestel and Justin Shukat.
Shout out to
the
Larry
president and,
Justin.
the CEO of Primary Wave. Yes.
I used to be signed to Primary Wave too. Shout out to Justin and Larry.
That's how we met, Che.
Yeah, that's it. That is how
we met through Justin Shukat. So I called them and I was like, I will stand on tables for this company. I will sign a whole new roster. I just didn't want to work at a major where I didn't feel like I was sinking or swimming with things. I still wanted to feel super creative. And so I think I got that from it. And it was a great balance of me learning and me catching up to the position I was in, and setting up writing sessions and really understanding how creative, like what's the best strategy to take a writer from A to Z.
Yeah, I've said this before on the podcast. I feel like publishing is one of the most mysterious areas of the music business. It's the one that when you talk to young artists or songwriters or producers that they know the least about. And I think when people, any business you're in, like if you're a drug dealer, you know your client, right? You know your business, you know your supplier, you know your and I feel like when the people come in the music business, they don't learn all the aspects of it. So I think that, the fact that your career path took that, because, some people look at publishing like it's not, one of the glamorous jobs, right? There's the manager who gets to run and be in front with the artist, or there's, the producers are, always in the studio, or all the glamorous sort of positions. Then publishing, to me, which is, as we know, is one of the most lucrative positions and part of the business in terms of owning copyrights and working with the artists and the creators of the music and the IP. Obviously, Big John is one of the most successful people in the music industry. It's fascinating to me that as you come in as a creative, that, you went that path.
I love copyright and I love publishing, even though, to your point, publishing is difficult as hell. And there's deals that I'm doing now that I'm like, wait, what? Explain this to me again. And I've been doing it for 15, 20 years. So it's not an easy part of the industry to understand. And, I haven't fully reflected upon this, but I think because of my personality and also me being a female executive, somehow being a publisher and it feeling a little more behind the scenes, like I don't have to be at the club with you. I don't have to be on tour with you. I don't have, don't have to do all those hours and answer your call at 1 a.m. So for those reasons, additionally, I think it fit for me.
Okay, gotcha. Now that goes into my next question. What's been your journey like as a female executive? Like, obviously, it's sort of a Me Too movement, it's a feminist movement. The music industry is notoriously, very similar to the, film and TV industry. Maybe it's not talked about as much, but what has been your experiences as a female executive trying to navigate?
I think there is so much work to be done. And I think it's a collaborative effort between male leadership and also female leadership to take initiative in how to
Kind of
create equality and define what equality really, really is. When I went to Spotify, it was like, look, we hired a senior female executive. Like, oh, okay. I'm not dope. Like, when producers wanted to work with me, like, yeah, like I love working with females. I'm like, oh, I forgot I'm a woman too. Okay, yeah, thanks for the reminder. I just thought I was great at what I did. So it was mostly getting reminded from the outside because I'm not sitting there making every move being like, well, I'm a female executive, so therefore I should do this or that. Another point that's important is when positions open up. If there's a new female songwriter, it's like, I'm the hottest female in the game. I'm this or that. It creates female competition.
Yeah.
If there's 4 positions open in a company, like one of them goes to a female, right? In your mind or something. And it's just
almost like we fulfilled that quota.
Yeah. And so women are then feeling like they have to compete for that one position. Well, why can't all 4 of those positions be women?
Yeah, I still think even, and don't get me wrong, we've got some major figureheads in the music industry, meaning like Sylvia Rohn and Michelle Jubilee at Capitol, and just some of these really powerful female executives, but there's still not enough. You know what I mean? If you still look at the music industry, it's still dominated by white males. You know what I mean? In the senior leadership positions.
Yes.
You know, shout out to Jody at Universal and Ethiopia, but it's still dominated. You know what I mean? And is that one of the reasons why you decided to start your own company?
I think that was unrelated. I started my own company because I wanted no ceiling and I just wanted to go and feel creative. And I didn't have it all together when I was leaving Spotify. At Spotify, I was the global head of songwriter and producer relations and created Secret Genius, and we opened up 4 recording studios. We did writing camps all around the world. I created an ambassador list yearly where we'd name the top writers and producers. I did billboards on Sunset Boulevard.
No, wait, let's back up. Let's back up. What made you leave publishing to go with Spotify? One of the DSPs with, a Swedish company,
We did a really great deal for RedOne and his company 2101 Songs with Olay Publishing.
Yep.
So at that point, it was whether Red wanted to continue and build again. So we were in a transitional point, and I read an article of Troy Carter going to Spotify.
Okay.
I did not know him. Like, not at all. I don't even think I knew him in passing. Like, this wasn't even someone. So I was like, who do I know that knows him? And
wow. And look at how you actually indirectly connected through the whole Gaga thing. You know what I mean?
Indirectly, correct. And I completely campaigned for that job. Like, I told everybody that I wanted it. I emailed John Legend. I was like, can you hit up Troy for me? He was like, no problem. I mean, it was like, who knows Troy that I know?
I love that. Like, when you want something, you go get it. Like, you just go after it.
I was like, let me just get the meeting. I didn't even know what the position was. I didn't even know it was songwriter related. And then once we sat down, he was like, so everyone hit me up about you. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But then once he started explaining the position, I was like, oh my God, this is me. But this wasn't even a highly coveted thing. Yes, Spotify was, but songwriters hated Spotify. So it was like, you're going to the other side. Yep. You better not ever want to be a publisher again because no one's going to want you after you've gone with Spotify. And
what was that like? Because, I know Daniel, the founder, and I know it's a Swedish company, and obviously Daniel's engineering background, not a musical background. Mm-hmm. What was it like going to Spotify? Especially you've been in like such music immersion situations. Now you go to this DSP.
Before we created Secret Genius, before any of that, it was, we need a bridge here. Like, songwriters need to be heard. So we set up I spoke to Daniel Ek directly, and he loved the idea of meeting with songwriters and producers like Ricky Reed or Jeff Basker, and just having that conversation direct with them. And I think that was super helpful and foundational, and just listening to the community.
Okay.
And on the artist side, Spotify was doing such a great job with the billboards and the fans first stuff and the playlisting, that it was like, is there a value exchange here for writers and producers?
Okay. And that was kind of your first order of business.
Yes. And then we just sort of created it as a marketing plan, quite frankly, because the legal side of it was going to take a long, we don't know how the chips were going to fall on those things. And we brought songwriters to different offsites of different parts of the company, flew them to, Jay Cash came to Cuba. I sent Priscilla Renee on a marketing, she's an incredible songwriter, like the marketing teams offsite, just getting them in the company.
Okay. And just starting that communication, like you said, the bridge.
Correct.
Okay. So you're at Spotify. You set up these programs, you do that, and then you get this idea for your company. Did you have it while you were at Spotify, or
Secret Genius was blowing up? Like, we did an award show the first year that Halsey performed at, Shawn Mendes performed at. We honored Quincy Jones, like Party Next Door. Every big writer and producer was there in the room. It was so highly curated, and like the entire team killed it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I was there.
And then we did it again the next year, and we had Max Martin and Timbaland and Quincy we had Rick Rubin the first year. Quincy was the second year. But the point is, it's like Ty Dolla $ign. I mean, it was it blew up. Like the brand blew up, right? I'd walk in Soho House with the Secret Genius hoodie on. It like might as well have been like Yeezy season, whatever, right? Okay. But everyone was like, but it's not yours. And I'm like, but it is. Like, I created They're like, but it's not yours though. And it started to being a pattern in my meetings, and I was like, damn it, this is not mine. I'm building this. And it just it was that, and also Troy Carter leaving. So I didn't know how much I knew eventually I wanted to leave and create a brand. I mean, it was like Harvard to me. I learned so much.
Yeah.
I learned so much from Troy Carter and other executives at the company and my team, building Secret Genius, that I was like, I'm ready.
Yeah. And I mean, and then Troy left to go build his company.
Yes.
So that really put the battery in your back to really.
I mean, I was like, leave it. It was literally at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about Beat House.
I launched Beat House. We're not even a year old. So
congratulations on everything, FYI. So I want a quick segue. One of the main reasons I even wanted Tiffany on the program is just the powerful entrepreneur side of what she's doing. I think it doesn't matter, male or female, black, white, gray, purple, whatever color you are. I think to take the risk to step out on your own, especially when you could have a nice cushy job and catch a check and all those things, and sort of not necessarily coast, but to some extent have that security. To leave that, to go to the uncertain, I think it's a fearless thing. It took me, 24 years to do it. You know what I mean? So anytime I see someone embark on it, I'm just so impressed with them. And you're doing it and you're thriving. So now let's get into this portion of your career, because this is what it's about. This is really why
I mean, there's a difference between good and great. And to get to great is to be fearless. And that was me from the beginning of my career. Like, how do you go into a studio room and just start like singing when you can't even sing that well? You know what I mean? Like, I was just spitting out ideas. People were like, that's the worst idea. I'm like, well, then how about this idea? Like, you just keep going.
Yeah.
So it's like that fearlessness is what I realized was like the secret sauce that I was like, even going in at Spotify, like internally people were like, what was she here to hired for? Or like, whatever.
Yeah.
We don't know what Troy and Tiffany are doing. And so I don't even think my biggest risk was Beat House. I think there were I think the Secret Genius thing was a crazy risk. I think me like pretending I was a songwriter for a second. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, you were doing it. Like you said, you got placements. Yeah, you did it.
I mean, do you know what I mean?
But the fearlessness, that's a good, you know what I mean? Good, just because I do think there is some fearlessness to it. because you second guess everything, right? Especially in the music business. To me, like maybe that's part of being a creative, that insecurity. So to overcome that.
And then there's certain security. So now I'm like super visible in like, she's global head of songwriter and producer relations for a $1 billion company,
Yeah.
There's press releases, this and that. Like, do I need some big announcement of Tiffany Kumar launches new company? And
did you do that?
I did not do that. That was a conversation that I had with a couple people. It was like, do the work and then come back with it. But it felt, I was very insecure with that, with not being like, this is what I'm launching, right?
Yeah.
Like I got a big investment and I did this and here's the launch. Like I also didn't have it fully figured out. I was like, I want to do a TV show with writers and producers, and I was partnering with Big Fish Entertainment. And then I was like, I want to do this. And so I was just really like planting a ton of seeds. I knew for sure that I wanted publishing to be part of Beat House. And I think
that was part of your skill set. So definitely,
Yeah, I mean, so I did a large joint venture deal with Scott Cutler and Josh Abraham at Pulse. And so that was really exciting. And there was no question that that was the team that I wanted on the publishing side. And so we're also building the record label for Beat House, and we do a lot of social justice work.
Okay. Was that important to you in terms of having that as part of the DNA of the company?
Yes, because we wake up every morning, we're in recording studios, we're like, it just feels balanced. And it's also created an ecosystem for Beat House that's been.
What got you sort of into that?
I have a best friend named Seema, and she's an attorney for criminal justice reform.
Okay.
And she was working with the Alliance for Safety and Justice, and she does so much work. And so she brought me in. There was a concert that they were doing, and they were last minute needing somebody, and I booked Ty Dolla $ign for it. He has a brother that's incarcerated, and it was a very powerful performance. And then we moved on from there and passed a couple bills in California with Ty and Nipsey and G-Eazy, with a campaign called Time Done. And that is related to lifting restrictions on people that have been incarcerated.
That's good. That's good. I think, the entertainment, and obviously, like say with like Kim and Kanye getting involved, and that brings attention to this stuff. I think it just needs to go hand in hand, meaning if rappers can talk about money and this and that, you know what I mean? It's like at the same time kind of like do a little bit of the Meek Mill, and obviously Meek, it's personal because of what he went through, but I don't think it should have to wait till that, to that, everybody goes through it every day. Everyone's got families go through, so I just feel like it needs to be a part of everybody company, especially in the urban entertainment industry, because it's so personal to everybody. So, it's good to see. I'm glad that's part of your company. It's good to see what Jay-Z's doing more of it, Meek, and Rock Nation has their social department now. So I think, and the company I'm building, I'm doing the same thing. There's an aspect of it that's literally like a youth organization.
Love it.
So that's good.
Anthony Soleil, he manages Nas and Future.
Mm-hmm.
When we first spoke about Beat House, he was like, I love the idea, and this is why. He said, look at the music industry, and think about two brands, right? The brand of Hilton Hotel and the brand of Nike. You can maybe imagine like Nike creating a hotel.
Yeah.
It would be colorful, whatever, maybe in Vegas, but you would never buy a Hilton shoe, right? We're at a place in the music industry where the Nike brands are winning, right? There was a lot of like aggregators and record labels that were operating like Hilton Hotel, but like the brands that are winning and the record labels that are winning have always been, and even more so now than ever, are the ones in the culture creating, you know what I mean? So it's all these different pieces. It's the social work. It's the artists that you're choosing. Yeah. It's the brands that you're building.
Exactly. It's more than just, just the song these days, right?
It's not distributing the record and A&R. It's like that role.
It's the whole, exactly. It's the lifestyle. What's your definition of success?
So before I went to Spotify, this was, I think God and the universe have a way of giving you these moments in your life that are teaching moments and you don't realize they are till later. And I'm not like,
Well said.
yeah. So this, now looking back at this time, right after RedOne, before Spotify, because the Spotify thing, I didn't even know that Troy was going there. Like there were definitely months where I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, I can do anything. Should I just leave the music industry? What should I do? Like it was that crazy for me in my mind and my heart and what I wanted to do. And I spoke to somebody that was like, well, what's your island? And I'm like, well, like a paycheck, like, feeling good out here, feeling creative. And she was like, no, that's the beach. That's the beach. You're defining the beach. What's the island? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And it was so like difficult for me to define like what is happiness and work backwards from that because the things that you think, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started just like building on it. I was like, well, I don't want to look at my phone and be stressed out. I don't want to like feel anxious. I don't want to feel like I have to reply to people. And I would just start defining it, and then got to what my version of happiness really is and that island.
Okay. And yeah, I asked that question because Dre said to me one day, he said, and it wasn't even necessarily about the money and making the money from beats, but you could tell it was like just the piece. He said, I don't have to be anywhere. Meaning, like, if we think about our days, right? Sometimes it's, I got to be here at 3. I got to be there.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, I don't have to be anywhere. Like, I can be wherever I want to be, whenever I want to be, how, I'll be there for my family or something. But other than that, I don't have to be anywhere. And I was like, wow, that's a real, like,
I love that.
Zen.
I subscribe to that. I'm the person that's like, I'm not a flake, right? I'm of my word at all times, but I don't owe anybody anything.
Yeah.
Like, I will just be honest with you. Like, my brain is fried. I can't come to the studio right now.
Right.
Like, that just happened last night.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And I just thought everyone has a different answer to that question. And as I've gotten older and as I've got more experience, that, that question to my 20-year-old self, would have been a completely different answer. I'd have been like, oh, I want such and such. I need a house. I need this, da-da-da. Now it's like, I just want... I want that peace of mind, and that stability is one thing, but that peace of mind is right up there where that wouldn't even been in my answer.
It takes time to even appreciate what that is.
Yeah. What advice would you give your 23-year-old self? Knowing you're only 25, but no, if you're 20.
When I was on the show Making the Band, this is we had cameras on us. I made a huge deal of being like, don't film me. I'm a songwriter. Like, I'm behind the scenes. And I was like in hoodies every day. I was like this other person. And I look back and I'm like, crap, if I had just been more visible on that show, I think a lot of other things would have been helpful for me. I think that, and we see that with social media. It's like, you don't have to be shy on social media. You can be a dope female, a dope executive, like a great creative, very talented. And I think that there is a little bit of a stigma of like, I have to be behind the scenes. I don't know. I think I made that mistake on Making the Band.
I agree with that because, if I look back on my career, I feel like that was the biggest. I can remember like Pharrell and Rob Walker used to work with Pharrell, saying like, you got to be more visible, Che. You got to, my first company was, my production company called Invisible Society.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you could just completely exist in the ether and not, not be seen. And, it was all about marketing, right? Look at Swizz, look at Timbaland, look at Pharrell.
Those are brands.
They're brands and they marketed themselves. They really made sure they were in the forefront. And look at them now, and they built brands that lasted.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with you there. That's definitely one of my pieces of advice to my younger self. I want to talk to like now sort of the community of young future boss females. Doesn't necessarily mean women because it also could be men too, but in this case specifically the females, because I have a daughter who's on her way to being a young boss. Hopefully, that's what I want to raise. So, I think I meet a lot of like up and coming young people in this industry, and they always ask the same kind of questions, like, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I get on? So if you're talking to this community of young women, that the next young female executive, what would you say to them in terms of what kind of steps would you take in your career path?
I notice people around me, young people, ask those questions. What do I do? Can you connect me to this? Can you do that? It's like, do it yourself. Like, just do it. Like, I never was like, can you be my mentor to anybody? When I picked up Pro Tools and read the Pro Tools for Dummies book, and then I would sit in sessions and just be like, can I just sit here and take notes on like spacebar and what you're pressing? Like, I would do things like that rather than what advice. And I think that almost, it just holds you back from not realizing like you can do it. Just start defining, and there's and you know more than you think you know.
Okay. But and that goes back to that fearlessness that you know has been a sort of a reoccurring thing in your career. So that's good advice. Moving forward with Beat House, what's next? Like, what's next for Beat House?
My first signing was a female producer, incredible writer, incredible artist named Killboy. She just signed to Atlantic Records a few days ago.
Wow, congratulations.
So we're so excited about her.
2020.
Signed another artist named Notice. I've recently, within the last 24 hours, signed A1 Bentley, who's an incredible songwriter and producer as well. So working on all of them, working on building the record label.
Okay.
We have...
Are you going to go the traditional distribution route, or are you going to go something a little more modern?
A little more modern.
Okay.
Yes. So far, that's the plan.
Good. Good.
We'll see.
Yeah.
And then on the criminal justice front, we have great things happening across the country. Like T-Pain's coming to a rally we're doing in Tallahassee. We're doing a lot of work in Chicago. We're bringing influencers across the country and doing that. We just hosted
that's national, the stuff you're doing.
It's different states. Yes, it's national. It's not every state.
Okay. But Beat House is still based in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Currently. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany, for having you on the program. Anything you just want to shout out, any of your people?
This was so fun, Che. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. It's good to just come and chop up,
I'm going to shout you out right now. Shout out to Che for creating this amazing podcast and platform.
Thank you. Thank you. And shout out to the owners, the young owners. You're still young because you're much younger than me. But I just think in closing, what I want to say is I've had several guests so far, and I've had some great and amazing guests. But right now, you are the first founder that I've had on the company in terms of like real, startup, proper founder. And part of this show I want to dedicate to those people as well. That's part of what Q&A is about. Because a lot of times when I'm, the Q&A podcast came from the sort of the question and answer part of my lectures. And one of the questions that kept coming back was, how do I start my own company? How do I get funding? How do I do this? So I see this that entrepreneurial spirit alive with these kids. You know what I mean? I think they're starting to see what the Jay-Z's and the Diddy's or whoever else, even, what's my guy from Reggie Lou Dennis of the world. And coming from sort of the inner city, there's sometimes, to me, growing up, there was a lack of information, I came up prior to the internet. So dating myself there, but there was no internet, there was no Google. And I didn't feel like information like that in terms of like how to build a business and those kind of things was just readily available, and when I went to school for business, it was very textbook. It wasn't real life. It wasn't real, it wasn't really giving me the tools to really go out there and start. It gave me the tools maybe to go be an employee somewhere, but it didn't give me the tools to definitely go out and start my own company and start my own business. So that is a major purpose of what this podcast is about. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Che.
All right. Take care. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Q&A with Che. I'm here with Tiffany Kumar, the one and only, the founder of Beat House, boss lady. Thank you so much.